Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, Making Moves with Mike. Today we're going to be talking about alcoholism, my journey from alcohol. Now, I just went to a men's retreat this past weekend and I was able to open up to a bunch of men I don't even know, strangers. But it allowed people to actually open up because I was vulnerable. Whenever they saw me become vulnerable, they were, able to open up. And it kind of really struck me. That's why I wanted to do a video, because in today's modern society, men aren't allowed to express their feelings. We're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to tell you how we feel. We're not allowed to, have a bad day. We're supposed to just man up, tough it out. But, you don't really realize how many battles men are fighting alone. How many times when we're by ourselves, how many times we break down, you don't get to see that. The problem with holding something in is it's okay to hold something in for a short period of time, if that's what you need to do. However, if you continue to hold something in, eventually what's going to wind up happening is it will surface at some point in time. Now, I feel as if the longer you hold on to something, the worse it's going to get whenever it does come to light. For me, my biggest strength that I have found was whenever I was my most vulnerable. I feel mentally stronger now than I think I've ever felt in my entire life, but it was because I became vulnerable. I had to be the one to admit that I had faults. I had to be the one to admit that I was a weak-minded person. Now, whenever you're in a state of alcoholism, addiction, whatever it is, drugs, whatever your choice is, it really doesn't matter what it is. It could be food, it could be anything. But you don't realize the damage that you're doing to yourself. You also don't realize the damage that you're doing to others. When I first started drinking alcohol, and that's the thing, the enemy will trick you, and make you think that, this is fun, this is great. When I first started drinking alcohol, I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of numbed the pain. I felt great. Felt like I didn't have to really stress or worry. Now, what eventually winds up happening is, what seemed to be a good time once a month became once every 2 weeks, once a week, once every weekend, every day, and that's kind of how it progressed for me, and I can't speak for everybody. However, eventually what wound up happening to me was I became very self-destructive. One of the first things that happens in addiction is you isolate yourself. Well, isolation leads to selfishness. Something I didn't realize at that point in time, but as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize that whenever you are by yourself, you become a selfish person. And what I mean by that is, when I was an alcoholic, all I could think about was myself. What can I do to get more alcohol? I didn't think about the games that I missed with my son. I didn't think about events that came up with family members, or, somebody was working on their barn, or somebody was doing something that maybe I could have helped. Maybe I could have went over there and, helped out a family member, a friend, somebody, that I was acquainted with. But I never thought like that. In my addiction, the only thing I could think about was getting more. And the reason why for me, is because I wanted to numb the pain of the things I was going through. Keep in mind, I had went through 2 failed marriages, and I had went through, losing my mother and my father after both, failed marriages, on top of losing, more family members than that. Now, that's not even to say what happened to me as a child. I had a lot of things happen to me as a child that are characteristical issues that I'm dealing with now as an adult. However, at that point in time, I had used what was going on in my life as a crutch. I was a very weak-minded person. And so I was feeding my addiction, trying to numb the things that were going on in my life so that I didn't have to deal with reality. Well, by doing so, I caused a lot of pain to a lot of people. And particularly my son. He was one of the people that, I missed out on a lot with him. And I didn't get to deal with the pain. I wasn't there for it because I was in my own world. I was in Michael's world. And in Michael's world, I was more about the things that I was going through, not realizing the things that everybody else was going through because I was so self-absorbed into what I was going through. Again, like I said, very weak-minded person. Now, when I went into rehab to get my sobriety, I had actually wound up submitting myself to God and submitting myself like, hey, I've got a problem. I need help. So The issue with that is, and anybody that's going through addiction or anything like that, my word of advice to you is it's not going to be easy whenever you sober up. The damage that you've caused to other people and the damage that you've caused in your life are things that you're going to have to face. Now, one of the things that I'm realizing now as I'm getting older is I cannot face the things that I'm going through in my life right now by resorting back to my old ways, alcohol or anything like that. Now I'm having to face things for the very first time, and I'm having to feel the emotional devastation of what I've done to people. I'm having to feel the hurt and the pain of people who aren't speaking to me. I'm having to feel the hurt and pain of people who are hurt and judgmental of who I used to be and not who I am now. I have to deal with that. And you know what? I completely understand. At this point in my life, I completely understand. I have caused a lot of pain. I've caused a lot of hurt. And even though I feel like I'm going through, things now and dealing with things now, like I said before, I wasn't there for the damage that has happened to other people. And I wasn't there when people were upset or crying or, feeling the way that they feel. And, another thing too is one of the things that I want to kind of stress is, silence is acceptance. If you keep your mouth shut and you don't say anything, then theoretically you're just saying that it's okay, and it's not okay. You need to speak up. I needed to speak up. The people around me needed to speak up and not stay quiet. And that's one of the things that I'm starting to learn now. Another thing too, guys, and this is something that I want to stress to you as well. A lot of times in my life, I was wondering why I was going through the things I was going through. I'm like, why is my life falling apart? Why are things not working out for me? Why are things falling apart over here? Why am I going through the things that I'm going through? I had a lot of those questions, but I'm here to tell you now, in my sobriety, I believe that some things fall apart so that other things can fall in place. After all the things I've been through, like I said earlier, the failed marriages, the losing family members and stuff like that, it was hurtful. It was a lot of pain, a lot of traumatic experiences that I've had in my life. However, they were all a blessing. It gives me the opportunity to speak out and reach people. And I'm here to tell you, men who don't show emotion, who aren't able to come out and speak how they feel, I'm here to tell you that I'm going to speak for you. I'm going to speak out. I'm going to be the one that comes out and says, look, I'm not perfect. Look, I'm emotional. Look, I've got issues. There's a lot of things about me that I'm working on. There's a lot of things about me that I'm trying to use to help out other people. I realized that the things that I was going through in my entire life were events and places and things that made me who I am today and gave me the opportunity to help out other people. It wasn't my crutch, guys. What I went through in my life was not a crutch. What I went through in my life was my testimony, and I didn't realize that. And now I have the opportunity to use the things that have happened in my life as a weapon to help out other people. When you get in an addiction, a lot of times the person that goes into addiction is hurt. He's trying or she's trying to fill a void that cannot be fulfilled. And that could be, for a number of reasons. It could be loss. It could be a traumatic experience. It could be whatever the case may be that causes that individual to go down that road. Now, you have to be patient with that person. Give them the chance to change. People do change. People need to feel loved. People need to feel like it's okay. We are human. The mistakes that I've made in my life are mistakes made by a human. I am not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect entity. I'm not a perfect, whatever it is that you want to call me. At the end of the day, I'm very imperfect. And that's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to experience life and make mistakes. The thing that you want to do, though, is when you make the mistakes, you want to be able to take those experiences to fix the mistakes. Don't let it happen again. If you are in a state of mind right now where you are still blaming yourself, don't let your past hold you hostage. You know that I was an alcoholic for 4 years because I allowed my past to keep me hostage. I allowed my past to tell me, you're not good enough. You're a crappy father. You're a crappy brother. You're a crappy Husband, you're a crappy friend. You're a crappy this, that. And it kept me in my alcoholism. And at the end of the day, the person that you turn into, when you do become your better self, when you do become sober, when you do see the things that have happened in life and you tell yourself, I am not that person anymore, that person is dead and gone, then why are you letting your past hold you hostage? You're convicting an innocent person. If you wouldn't do what you did back then you are convicting an innocent person. That's something I heard from Les Brown, which is one of my favorite motivational speakers of all time. You know, but there's a lot of truth behind that. There's so much truth behind that because you can't allow your past to hold you hostage. You can't allow the mistakes that you've made in your life to hold you hostage. What you have to do is you have to realize what it is that you need to become in order to prevent the same mistakes from happening, because life is more of a repeated cycle. So at the end of the day, you want to beat that cycle. You want to break that cycle. You know, another thing that takes me into as well is generational, generational curses or generational, I don't know how you want to word it, but a lot of times, like, you know, you have family members, parents, aunts, uncles, all that good stuff that have addiction problems, and that can trickle down into yourself and your children and things of that nature. So you got to be very mindful of not only your thoughts, your behaviors, but also keep in mind the thoughts and behaviors and characteristical issues and stuff like that that come from like your parents and your elders and stuff like that right there too. You know, it's passed down in the family and stuff. You know, just make sure that you pay attention to that. You know, another thing I want to talk to you guys about is the way that you think. You know, one of the things that my dad used to say, and this is before he passed away, and I love this, is he used to always say, if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. That is absolutely true. How you perceive your reality is the reality that you're going to live in. If you perceive everything that is happening to you and not for you, well, then you're going to expect things to happen to you. If you keep a negative mindset and then you say to yourself, oh, you know, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to fall off. Guess what's going to happen? The other shoe's going to fall off. You gotta get out of that mindset. You know, one of the things I talked about before was valuing people, valuing yourself. You know, another thing that kept me in my addiction, because there's numerous reasons why I went into, you know, my addiction, but one of them was I didn't value myself. I didn't love myself. I was a very destructive person to myself. I didn't like the fact that I repeat myself all the time. I didn't like the fact that I wasn't the smartest one in the crowd. I wasn't the most artistic one in the crowd. I wasn't, you know, the most successful person in the family or the most successful person in my group or anything like that. So I had a lot of issues, you know, that I had to deal with and learn to love myself. Once I started learning to love myself, then I started, you know, getting to a place where I can learn to love others. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I remember so many times in relationships and even friendships and stuff like that, where I have lost that. And then I thought to myself, what's wrong with these people? And at the end of the day, it wasn't just the people. You know, the common denominator was me. And I had to come to grips with that. I had to come to grips with understanding that I had a lot of flaws in me. I thought I was a perfect person. I thought that, you know, well, I've got great intentions. You know, my intentions are great. Well, some of the most devastating things have happened off the best of intentions. And those are things that I had to realize. Just because it seems good, just because it feels good, doesn't always mean that it's good. So I had to learn how to deal with that. You know, it's not even just about the alcohol, like I was saying earlier about food and stuff like that. I went through so many different vices. I went through so many different things in my life that have caused me harm to my body. Overeating, gaining a whole bunch of weight, getting up past over 300 pounds. You know, just so many things that were going on. Well, one of the things that I've learned is, and it especially this definitely applies to me as far as physically, was I wasn't mentally okay. And you have to get yourself good mentally before you can really get yourself good physically. And, you know, like for me, like I said, weight gain and all that good stuff came from depression, came from anxiety, came from a lot of different elements in my life that I had to learn how to deal with in order to kind of gain control of that. One of the things I realized was I didn't have control. I didn't have control over myself because I was so busy trying to control my life and everything outside of me, which at the end of the day, you don't have control over. The only thing that you have control over is yourself. I didn't have control over the events and the things that have happened in my life and the things that were devastating. What I did have control over was how I handled them. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't handle them well. That's why I am a recovering alcoholic. And it took a long time to understand that. It's not really what happens to you, it's how you handle it. You know, what are you going to do about it? How you respond to something ultimately is within your control. You know, how other things happen in your life, it's not in your control. Now, you know, like I said earlier, sometimes things fall apart for things to kind of fall together. Had I not had the things that have happened in my life, it would be very hard to come before you now and tell you all my faults and tell you all the things that I have knowledge on to be able to relate to you or relate to somebody in your family to be able to help them. You know, I can't literally sit here and say that everything I went through was a curse because I don't believe that. I really don't. Maybe at the time of alcohol, I believe that because, like I said, the enemy wants you by yourself and he wants you to be selfish. And that's pretty much how that worked. As long as you're destroying yourself, you're not going to be attacked. The attack comes when you actually value yourself. The attack comes when you start valuing other people, when you start helping out other people, when you get to a place where you want to save as many people as possible. That's when the attacks start happening. Now, as I said before, you don't have control over that. You have control over how you react to those attacks. And at the end of the day, are you going to let it continuously break you? Or are you going to stand up with inside yourself and become your better person? Are you going to sit there and be in self-pity? Or are you going to look over and see that you need to pick your brother or sister up? You know, at the end of the day, that's up to you. Now, like I said, you know, the things that happen in your life that fall apart, my life fell apart many times, many times, but it was a blessing. It really was. God has humbled me in more ways than I can count. And I'm very blessed to be here today to tell you that I'm sober, to tell you that I'm happy, to tell you that I'm working on myself every single day, to be my better version of myself because I want to save as many people as possible. Now, I hope this reaches somebody. I hope that this is important to somebody. And as I said before, stop blaming yourself. You know, if you've made mistakes in your life, it's okay that you made those mistakes. But you have the opportunity as of right now to stop making those mistakes and to start working forward. It's not going to be easy. I'm telling you. I don't know if you're just not going into addiction, if you're in the middle of addiction, if you're coming out of addiction. But just know that it's not easy, but it's worth it. If you have the opportunity to be your better self, then please do so. If you have the opportunity to check yourself into a rehab, then please do so. If you have the opportunity to mend that relationship with somebody, then please do so. Now, I would love for you guys to leave in the comments, you know, maybe some ideas of videos that you want me to do in the future. I also want you to leave in the comments, you know, whether this video may have helped, you know, and if you got people with addiction problems, you know, send it to them. Whatever it is that I can do to help, that's what I'm here for. That's what God designed me to be, and that's what God designed me to do. So, having said that, I hope you guys have an awesome week.